the Master Your Moment podcast. I'm Leslie, guiding you into physical, mental, and emotional wellness. And I'm so excited because today I have Yasha Chapman here, and she is from the Elementary Education Evolve, and she's going to be so amazing. We talked a little while ago, and I'm just so excited for you guys to meet her and see what she is doing in the world of education. So welcome, Yasha, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to be talking with you today.
Yes. So, Yasha, tell us a little bit about your journey in education and where you started to where you are now.
Awesome. Okay, so I started initially as a pre-K teacher, as a classroom teacher. I did that for about 4 years, and I began teaching in North Carolina. So a little bit about me, I'm a military spouse, and so I'm fortunate enough to move every 3 to 4 years and experience a new state, a new region of the country, and just to get to see like a new overall landscape of that educational landscape in that area. And so I started off in North Carolina teaching pre-K, moved to South Carolina where I taught second grade and was nominated for a Teacher of the Year after 2 years of
Wow.
being there.
That's
Yeah, you know what? I'm always claim the title because I lost. I say I lost, but I didn't get it off of default. You had to be teaching at the district for 3 years in order to receive the title, and I'd only been there for 10. I mean, for 2. Sorry.
right. Yeah.
And so yeah, so I couldn't get it, but my staff members, my colleagues, they all voted for me. So my principal did let me know, like, hey, had you met this criteria, you would have gotten it, but we had to pick someone else. But in my heart, I still feel
You
like
still got
it
it.
belongs to me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's so amazing to like get that so quickly in starting your teaching career. You must have just been more of a natural at it, right?
Oh, I think so. And so from there, I began tutoring, made the transition to move to New York. I went back, got my master's in curriculum and instruction with the specialization in leadership. And that launched me into my career as a curriculum specialist, a curriculum coordinator. And then I also transitioned into an instructional coach. And now I am living in California and I am an educational consultant where I'm the CEO of my own business, Elementary Education Evolve. And I partner with school districts, different educational organizations, with teachers themselves. And I offer professional development training and instructional coaching to help close the academic achievement gap for Black and Brown students.
Yeah, I know. That is so amazing. What a journey. It just it make it sound like it just happened so fast, but I'm sure it took a lot of time and a lot of effort and energy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that probably being able to move and see how things are different across the country was probably really beneficial into you creating this.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what is Evolve, and I mean, we had spoken previously, it's an acronym for something, and tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so Evolve broken down. So we have created a framework, and that framework is Grow to Evolve. And what that Evolve stands for is engagement, variation, owning, leveraging, visualizing to verbalizing, and empowering. And so we have criteria for each component as to what that looks like. And we do professional development training around each component, as well as tying into whatever the teacher's personal goals are, what they need for their professional development. And we just make it all come to life. So when anytime like doing observations, like I said, or in coaching meetings, we look at their engagement. We look at how are they owning the material? Are they showing up fully prepared? Are they owning being quick on your toes and learning when to pivot based off of your student data? Leveraging, are you leveraging your highest leverage questions that's going to get your students to
Yeah.
analyze and to construct their own ideas as opposed to the basic levels of recalling. We look at visualizing to verbalizing, and that is really being able to have the end goal in mind, visualizing what that looks like, the steps that are needed to get there, and then verbalizing that plan into action so that we're able to execute it. And of course, empowering. How are you empowering and
Mhm.
reaffirming your students?
Yeah, that is so awesome. I feel like, my business is Master Your Moment, and yours is really about, evolving in education. And we're both, working towards professional development areas for teachers. And
Right.
so I feel like we have a really, kinship in that it's about mastering your moment, but it's also about evolving, and
Yes.
and getting better than what you were previously. Um,
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
what would you say your main philosophy and mission is? You mentioned it just a little bit there before, but
Yeah,
let's reiterate that and see go dive in a little bit deeper with
for
your mission.
sure. So our mission is to close academic achievement gaps for, it started off as K through 5. But as I continue to do this work, I realized that K through 12 is really needed for all students because of the pandemic. And when we're really looking at the academic achievement gaps, a lot of our high schoolers and our middle schoolers are still performing at an elementary school level. They're
Hmm.
still reading at a fourth grade or a fifth grade level. And so the skills, the same skills that I can help elementary school teachers with are applicable to middle and high school teachers. And so that's a recent change within the business, just expanding our reach from K through 5 to K-12, because it all applies and the framework can absolutely still apply to the teachers. And that's the other component of our mission. It is to retain teachers, specifically new teachers with 0 to 3 years of experience. Because as you know, we are experiencing
Yeah.
a mass exodus in the field of education. And so we want to retain those educators so that our students can achieve and can go close gaps. And we believe that we can retain teachers by them having classroom success. And in them having classroom success, it'll motivate them to stay and hopefully encourage them to close more gaps. So that is ultimately our mission, and our philosophy is the why behind why we do what we do.
Right. And just really trying to give them those tools that they need to be successful teachers, because we previously talked about, even just in university, how when you go into teaching, you're not really prepared for what is about to happen, because it's just
Absolutely.
so different and there's so many dynamics to being an educator
Right,
as
right. And
well.
so, yeah, because of that, the lack of preparation in teacher preparation programs, we serve as like that bridge for them. Okay, you have your new job, you're in this new building, but we know that the support that they need is so intensive, it has to be one-on-one. And so that's where we come in and we help support with that. Not only their, their professional goals and goals that their district has for them or goals that their school has, but then again, what do they have for themselves personally? And so we tie all of that in to make sure that they are being fulfilled, again, to encourage them to stay in the field.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I talked to you too about how visualization is sort of my theme this month, and I do more, mental health related things and
Mm-hmm.
counseling and self-care for teachers, as well as teaching them how to have a trauma-informed classroom. And I know that you're going to have a lot of tools related to having a trauma-informed classroom as well with your
Right.
Evolve. And so I wanted, because your program has that specific component of visualization, I'd like to dive deeper into what that component is really like. And you say it's visualization to verbalization. What does that mean?
Right. And so when we're looking at how to visualize, we have to have an image in our mind. And that image usually has to come from a goal or a numeric number, data. Where are your students now and where do you see them being? What level do you want the majority of your students on by the time they leave your classroom? And so that goes into what goals and what steps needs to be implemented in order to execute that goal and that vision. And so that's where we really start the majority of our work, setting groundwork in our goals, classroom goals, as well as individual student goals. And then we visualize what strategies would help meet these goals. And so we formulate a list of the strategies. We formulate when will you take the time to optimize and maximize on this, so that the teachers are clear. This is a time like morning meeting. I can tag this in here. I can tag this in during small groups. I can hit this during whole group, so that they have a clear image of where I'm going to utilize this specific strategy to target this goal for this student or this group of students. And then just verbalizing, students, this is what we're doing. That key is extremely important, because you get ownership from the students. You get that buy-in that you need, that we are on this journey together. And you're verbalizing it so that they understand the importance of it, and even creating a visual image of it. If you have to do like we're on a race, this is our marathon, we're trying to get to this finish goal with this, to get this trophy, so that we can be at this level, painting all of these different imageries along the course. And then, of course, letting them know from a social emotional standpoint, it's going to be hard. Some days, you may look like this, defeated and burnt out and just given up. But there are other days where you will be like a champion, where you feel like you can tackle anything. And so giving them that reality of, you are going to go through these emotions and through these experiences, but just know that as your teacher, I am here to help you navigate those emotions and to reassure you of your abilities and of your powers and who you are and who I know you can be at the end of this process. And so really that's what it is about, visualizing to verbalizing, so that we can execute on it.
Yeah, I love that. And expecting them to know and understand they're not going to be perfect at it. The teacher's not going to be perfect at it. The student's not going to be perfect at it. And I love that, having the balance between like, yes, let's set our goals and let's visualize and see how we can be successful. But at the same time, knowing and understanding your day to day is going to always be different and fluctuating, because you're going to have lots of other dynamics that's going to interfere with how you're doing. That's where a lot of self-care comes into play too, is especially for teachers, and then teachers teaching children how to care for themselves so they can be socially and emotionally ready to access that information. And I think a lot of times, like I think of visualization as a tool for self-care. But it's also very important in goal setting. So I love that you're using that with teachers so that they can sit back and just focus for a minute on, how do I want my classroom to actually look like? How do I see this? And playing that over and over in their mind, right?
And
then,
even, I'm sorry, and
go
even
ahead.
rehearsing that.
Yes.
So as their coach, I help them rehearse, so where we can script out, how do you want this to go? What do you want to say? What jokes do you want to use? Try that on me, use that, so in the moment I can give you that feedback to help you strengthen it. Or, okay, maybe let's tweak it here, because if I'm confused as an adult, how are they going to understand it? So, having a second eye or second mind to help you brainstorm these things are what is missing and what's needed to close those gaps and to get the students to where we need them to be. So yeah, absolutely. And that visualizing and that rehearsing component that I don't think a lot of teachers take advantage of or even practice. And that could be a practice to help strengthen their instruction.
Yeah, they may not understand and realize like what a valuable tool it is, because if you haven't been exposed to it and you haven't been told, hey, as teachers, here's a tool you can use, then they're not going to do it. So maybe this can help plant a seed for somebody else out there, right?
Absolutely. I hope so, right?
Yes, yeah. So we talked a little bit about, the teacher's role in visualization. How can the teacher help students visualize their success in the classroom? Like, you're walking the teacher through how to visualize their classroom. How can a teacher actually help the student to visualize what they see as success for themselves?
Right. And that's honestly the same things. Conferencing with your students and one-on-one. This is, and being honest with them and transparent with them about where they are academically. So as teachers, you get a folder or file of based off of how that child performed from the previous year. Lay that out for them. This is where you currently are. At the end of this school year, this is where you need to be. Create an image, whether that's with a bar graph, a number line to show how many numeric jumps they have to make, whether you use it with like Mario Cube steps or in the image of a video game, however you need to communicate or relay that information, that this is the amount of work that you're going to have to put in to get here. But we're not going to do all that in a day. So we're going to have to break this up into chunks. So we set our goals based by quarters, right? So by the end of this 9 weeks, where do you think you can be? And let that child tell you. Honestly, they can tell you. I did this as early as kindergarten, as well as with my second graders. And they can verbalize to you where they feel like they can go and what they do. Something else we did after that was I would place their goal on their desk, tape it on there. Mm-hmm. So they have their name tag and they also have their goal. So their goal for reading, whether that's whatever reading level they want to be at, or whatever score they want to attain on the MAP scores or iReady scores, we place that number on their desk so that they have that as a visual reminder throughout the day. I am working for something. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm working for. So as I'm circulating, and I'm speaking on practices that I did as a classroom teacher and practices that I help other teachers implement. As you circulate, you want to, when you see their effort getting low or them, just not feeling motivated, just simply tap on that little note card. Hey, buddy, remember, this is our goal. This is what we're working for. Is what you're doing right now going to get us there? This is just a day where you're experiencing what we already talked about. Remember that picture I showed you at the beginning of the school year where I said this was going to feel like this? Absolutely. But you remember that other picture I showed you of how it looks like when you achieve? And you know what it looks like when you achieve, because we celebrate the small wins, which is something we should all be doing. So you know what that feels like. You want that feeling again. This is how you keep going. Yeah. So that's how you help students to also visualize and to verbalize what it is that they're trying to achieve as well. Set little reminders for them throughout your classroom. Like I said, you can do it on their individual desk. You can set classroom goals for your entire class. Okay, class, our goal is at the end of each lesson, we should make an 80% or higher. Mm-hmm. And so you have, a bubble gum machine. One of the other teachers I used to work with, she did a project like this where they had to make 100 gumballs into their gumball machine. And once they got so many, and that came from receiving an 80% or higher on their exit tickets, they got a class party. And so these are things that the students can visually see how close we are as a class to our goal, which also helps them to hold their peers responsible for their behavior during instruction, because they want that party. They want that prize. So when they see a student not paying attention while the teacher's teaching, hey, we're trying to get this bubble gum in the bubble gum machine today. You have to stop. You have to listen because we have to meet our goal. So now they're invested. And once you have their investment and their buy-in, they're going to push those other peers that we may have sometimes struggle with to get them back on track. And so that's one of the ways that I believe you can help students visualize as well.
Yeah, that's really, really awesome. So what do you think are teachers' biggest challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge I would say was one is not being fully prepared to teach. Like we've just stated, teacher preparation programs sometimes doing a disservice, not preparing them for classroom management, not preparing them for creating inclusive environments with students with disabilities, or even how to work with students from different backgrounds other than yourself, such as Black and Brown students. And so what we know is that 80% of the teachers in our country, in our public schools, are white, while 51% of our students are students of color. So there is a huge cultural gap. And of course, with that huge cultural gap, there are going to be huge academic gaps. And so one way to close that is more culturally relevant training. That is a problem or issue with our mindsets, having high expectations, literacy.
Mhm.
That's a trend, an issue, and that teachers sometimes struggle with, and even reading data, using data
Right.
to inform you as well as to direct you on how to deliver instruction. So these are just a few issues
Yeah.
that I
I mean,
see with
we
teachers.
could probably go on and on about all of the challenges, but
Oh yeah. Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah, I definitely think it's the planning. Like if you are not totally prepared, if you have not set out the expectations and the rules in your classroom, and you don't have them like visually located somewhere, I mean, we're talking about
Yeah.
visualization here,
Yeah.
then how do your students know and expect what to do? I
Right.
mean, they have to see it every day. They have to be
They have to
reminded
see it.
every day.
They have to have something to reference.
Mm-hmm.
They have to. Even especially when you're learning, or I mean, they're learning all day, but especially when you're teaching. Like I've gone in several classrooms where anchor charts are absent. And I'm like, how are you teaching without the use of an anchor chart? What are you using as a reference? How are you helping your kids retain this information? We retain by seeing. We and so to
Mm-hmm.
not have those visualization pieces around the classroom, to not use graphs, to not use things that they can rely on and become independent on instead of dependent on our teachers. That's a big one. If we just put more imagery in the, I mean, intentional imagery. And I
Right.
want to say that
Yes.
because a lot of teachers decorate, and I'm not knocking the decorations. Some
Yeah.
decoration classrooms are very beautiful. However, there's a lot of information on these walls that aren't necessary to be
Mm-hmm.
there. I've always been under the belief you only put up artwork or imagery that is related to the concept that you're teaching after it's been rolled out, so that it has
Mm-hmm.
meaning to that student as opposed to already having it on the wall from day one. They haven't been introduced to it. You haven't shown them how to use it and reference it to complete their schoolwork. You haven't introduced this as a tool to help you. It's more of a decoration. And so I want to
Right.
say that for teachers, specifically, make sure you are using what you're putting up around your classroom as a tool, as
Yeah.
opposed to just decoration.
Because you can start out with a blank slate,
You
in the
absolutely
classroom,
can, and you
and
actually should.
allow the students to figure out how they want to decorate their
You
classroom,
you
right?
actually should. That is one way you make it an inclusive learning environment when their handprint, their fingerprint is on it, because
Yeah.
they're connected to everything on those walls,
Yes. And
as
because
opposed
that's what's
to
going to
this was
be
already here when I got here.
meaningful. Okay, so listen to this. I watched this YouTube video during my lunch break today, and it was about learning what is it? Like learning types, like you have your visual learner, your auditory learner, kinesthetic
Right.
learner, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
basically he was like, this is all debunked because there is actually no evidence related to this. And I was like, what? And I was mind blown because that's what everybody does and says. And so he like went on an experiment to figure out like if people who study who say they're visual learners and people who are auditory learners, and he gave them like a picture of a list or called out a list, and they were mostly like 50-50 in their ability to actually give back what they wanted or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And as the video was going, I was like thinking about it more and more, and I was like, then he started asking them, how are you trying to remember these things?
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, I was visualizing it in my mind. I was making connections in my mind. It didn't matter if they were doing it through auditory or if they were doing it through visual.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time it was about how they were receiving the information and how
Mm-hmm.
are they making the connections. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like you're talking about in
Right.
in building the environment around you and having those visual
Mm-hmm.
aids is
Mm-hmm.
building the connection. So I just thought it was really interesting. I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, that is
I was really
interesting.
surprised by that too. Um,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
think
just
it
that
is how you receive it. I don't know. I have
I
to
have to
watch
look
it.
into it more,
Yeah, I
huh?
have to look into it, but I do know that there are some students like you have they're just fidgety and
Mhm.
they can't learn sitting still. They have to move or be
Yeah,
moving their fingers or something. So, um, I've actually experienced that. I've taught
yeah.
students that learn that way. So for that reason alone, I can't 100% agree with that.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know that it's necessarily about that being the way they learn or not learn. Like if
Hmm.
there's a kid that's fidgety, yeah, obviously them having something in their hand is going to help them,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, focus better. I mean, that's just
Right.
sort of about their focusing. I think
Right.
all of it though results into building that connection, no matter what connection you're making. And in your
Very
mind,
true.
you have to be
Right.
like making connection from one thing to another because our brain is set up with those neurons and those
Yeah.
pathways. And when you visualize it, you gotta make them connect over and over again. So,
Very true. Very
and
true.
kind of that way. So I don't know whether or not it's,
Yeah.
but I
It's
just
interesting
watched and I
though.
was like, whoa, that was different. But it made me start to think about like maybe it's more about the connection in the brain. But
Than
either way, yeah,
the visual connection.
yeah,
Yeah. But
yes,
that's the key part that they need that visualization. So yeah.
yeah. So, how do you think that visualization can help teachers and students?
I mean, seeing is believing, right? so so yeah, I think that's how it helps. You have to see where you're going, what you're doing. You have to see the fruits of your labor. You have to see if what I'm doing is working. I
Mhm.
think that's the only way to get that success. I'm trying to think of an analogy. My brain is leaving me,
Yeah,
but but yeah, I
yeah,
think that you can't effectively teach without using that component because you have, at least in my mind, like
hmm,
even planning, you have to look ahead to see what's on the summative assessment, right? So what do these students
hmm,
need to know by the end of this unit? Okay, if this is all of the concepts and the material they need to know, how can I, in a fun and engaging way, teach this? So you
right,
have to bring some imagery into it. You have to visualize it. You have to use entertainment or movies, and even the audio, some music, depending on what
hmm,
that is. And so these are all the things. But again, you have to visualize that to be
yeah,
able to even use an auditory component to see that you have. That's really it. Visualize. You need vision.
yeah. You need vision, like
You
to
need
give
vision.
you that hope, like you had said.
Yeah.
Seeing is
Yeah.
believing. Like having that
Yeah.
hope that, like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because when you
Yeah.
visualize it, I can get it. Yeah,
Right. The vision to not see them as they are, but to see them as who you believe they can become, the best versions of who
mm,
they can become. Because that's really what teaching is about.
it
Taking
is.
taking something in its raw form and making it greater.
Yeah, a hundred
So you
percent.
have to have the vision to do that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, can you tell me about a memorable success story or somebody that you coached that had an aha moment?
Let me see. Just an overall aha moment.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest aha moments that I remember would just be giving, which it sounds really simple, but giving teachers permission to be themselves.
Mm,
For whatever reason, teachers feel so much pressure, right?
yeah.
Walking into classrooms with their students. And I want them to just remember and just be cognitive of the pressure comes from other adults. It doesn't come from your students. Sometimes
Yeah.
we even put the
Mm,
pressure on ourselves, but with them, we can be our authentic selves. We can be free. we can be fun, and we can do what we know how to do, is which is connect and relate on the level that maybe other people don't get to relate to you on, because they haven't had the experience of having you as their teacher.
Yeah. So sort of giving them permission to let their personality shine.
Yeah, let your personality shine. Use your bring it into the classroom. So one of my gifts, it was an aha moment for myself. I used to dance, right? Use a dancer. And what was I teaching? Oh, solids, liquids, and gases.
Mm-hmm.
And so for whatever reason, because I wanted my students to do like a visual representation of what the solids, liquids, and gases all look like in their form with the molecules. And they were really struggling to do that. They could describe it or give me an example, but the actual formation was the challenge. And so I incorporated dance into it. And so I just showed them, gave them little dance movements to
Yeah.
do that, and gave them the assignment to create your own dance. And so they did that, and they went so well with it. And so it was like, oh, so the aha moment was I can use other forms of expression for them to be able to express the same concept. And so the next day, we took it to create a rap song. We took it to draw a picture. We took
Mm-hmm.
it to, okay, now write a poem using
Yeah.
these rhyming words. And we took words from the vocabulary unit, like words that they had to know. And so we hit on language, we hit on dance, we hit on art, we hit on
Mm-hmm.
music, to all explain this one concept.
Right. I
And
love
so,
that. That's so perfect. It's
so
about
yeah,
creating an experience for them, right?
that's it.
I that
That's
sounds
it.
very similar to something I did when I one of my very first um school counseling guidance lessons was
Mhm,
about respect, and I was trying to figure out how am I going to teach respect. So I
mhm,
just played that respect song, RESPCT.
uh-huh,
And I made like little dance movements, and I taught them the whole dance. And this was like sixth graders, and they were
mhm,
like not wanting to do it at first, but I just like kept trying. And it was so embarrassing for me because I had never done anything like that before, but I just was like, I'm gonna
uh-huh,
give it a shot.
mhm.
And then it turned out really, really well. And they finally got,
Yeah.
really got into it.
Yeah, I know children love authenticity, and they can tell when you're being inauthentic. That's when they're not buying it. That's where they're not into it. But when you come in authentically yourself, unapologetic about yourself, and let your personality shine, even teachers like who play the guitar, bring your guitar in. If you
Yeah.
play an instrument, incorporate your material with it. Just be yourself and find ways to connect with your students, and that's another way for them to build a relationship with you. So
Hmm.
now they know that you like to play the guitar. Now they know that you like to dance silly. And so when they're
Yeah.
feeling silly, they might want to come pick you out to dance with them. You never know. But those were the biggest aha moments. To bring your full self, because
Yeah.
they appreciate it even when adults around us fail to.
That is a great takeaway. Is there any other advice that you would give to teachers about their classroom? Like we've
Mm,
talked about so many things, but
yeah. Hang in there. I would say hang in there and trust that the work that you are doing is impactful. Trust that if they don't get it today, they may not get it tomorrow, but eventually they will. Our job as educators is to plant the seed, and eventually life, another teacher after you, a family member of that child, someone will come along and water it, but something has to be in the ground for
Mhm.
it to be watered so that it can take root and bloom into something beautiful. So don't ever doubt what you're doing. Just know that if you did not see the harvest of what you put in for that season, that you laid the groundwork and seeds are in the ground, and eventually it will take root and sprout.
Yes, as long as you authentic, you
Yeah,
plan, you give the
yeah,
work, you make the
yeah.
connections,
Right.
all of that will
You
happen.
do all the work, you do all that. Yep. You plant the seed, it will happen.
Yeah, I
It
love
will happen.
that. That is
Yeah.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
I am everywhere. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all under Elementary Education Evolved. You can find me on TikTok and of course on my website, www.elemedevolved.com.
And I'll make sure I put all of those in the notes. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Leslie. This has been fun.